Hello, I'm Musumba Jonathan, and this is your Lubumba Bible Thought of the Day. With the recent earthquakes in Venezuela, as rescue workers are desperately trying to find people that are still trapped in the rubble, and we know that there's still around 45,000 people that are missing, we're confronted with this question that continuously recurs to all of us in experience who are living in this world. And that is the reality of tragedy and suffering, whether it comes through a natural disaster like an earthquake, or war, or pestilence, or famine, or whatever. These things continuously occur in life, and we're always confronted by this challenge of why did this happen, and where is God in this? And knowing, if you believe God had the power to prevent such a thing, and you believe He's sovereign and in control of the universe, then why did He allow it to happen? You know, there's one chapter in Scripture that stands to me above everywhere else. There's many places in the Bible where we find comfort and truth in these moments, but probably my favorite is John chapter 11, where we have the record of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha, Jesus coming and raising him from the dead. But there's so many details within that chapter. Hello, I'm Musumba Jonathan, and this is about God. Hello, I'm Musumba Jonathan, your Lubumba Bible Thought of the Day. Venezuela. Recent earthquakes in Venezuela, as rescue workers are desperately trying to find people that are still trapped in the rubble, and we know that there's still around 45,000 people that are missing. We're confronted with this question that continuously recurs to all of us in experience who are living in this world. And that is the reality of tragedy and suffering, whether it comes through a natural disaster like an earthquake, or war, or pestilence, or famine, or whatever. These things continuously occur in life, and we're always confronted by this challenge of why did this happen, and where is God in this? And knowing, if you believe God had the power to prevent such a thing, and you believe He's sovereign and in control of the universe, then why did He allow it to happen? You know, there's one chapter in Scripture that stands to me above everywhere else. There's many places in the Bible where we find comfort and truth in these moments, but probably my favorite is John chapter 11, where we have the record of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. Lazarus getting sick and dying, and Jesus coming and raising him from the dead. But there's so many details within that chapter that teach us really important truths about God's sovereignty and control over suffering, God allowing us to suffer, and how we can see God's glory even in the midst of the worst things that we experience. You know, the chapter begins, Mary and Martha send word to Jesus that Lazarus is sick. And the text says something very interesting. It says, now Jesus loved Lazarus and Mary and Martha. So when He heard that Lazarus was sick, He stayed where He was 2 more days. And right away, you ask yourself, why would it say that He loved them, and yet then He chose to remain where He was and not go immediately to heal Lazarus? And we find out more as the story continues. So when Jesus finally does arrive at the home of Lazarus, He finds that Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. And when Mary and Martha hear that Jesus has come, Martha immediately goes to see Him, and she presents Him with the statement that is the challenge for all of us in the midst of tragedy. She said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Isn't that the question when we face really painful circumstances? Lord, you could have stopped this. You could have stopped this if only you'd come when I called you. And Jesus tells Martha, your brother will rise again. And Martha responds and says, I know that he will rise again on the last day in the resurrection. And Jesus makes this very profound statement. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And Jesus is stating that He is the source of power and redemption over death. And we know death is in the world through our sin. And Martha affirms, she says, I know that you are the Christ, you're the Son of God coming into the world. And then a little bit later in the text, we find the Jews saying to Mary that the teacher is calling for you. And it seems like, Mary, though she knew Jesus was there, it seems like she was unable to bring herself immediately to go and see him, because she's heartbroken at just this question, which is, Lord, why didn't you come when I called for you? When I told you my brother was sick? I know you could have healed him. I know you could have saved him. So why didn't you come? That's the challenge for us, right? As believers in this situation, is the tragedy going to drive faith in us and a deeper trust, or is it going to cause us to question and doubt God's goodness or even his power? And we find very important lessons about this as we continue in the story. And Jesus, when Mary comes and says that to him, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. The text tells us that Jesus was deeply troubled in his heart and in his spirit, and he wept. And I find that to be such an encouraging thing, because oftentimes we feel like God is absent and somehow distant in the sorrows we experience. But Jesus shows us, even in the fact that he came into this world to serve us and to give his life as a ransom for us, God is never absent from our sorrows. He's never distant from our troubles. And he has power to bring out redeeming. He can redeem the most terrible things that happen to us and occur in life if we will only trust in him. And he asks to see where they have laid Lazarus, and Lazarus has been buried in a cave, which was common Jewish burial practice at the time, and there's a stone that had been placed over the cave, and Jesus tells them, take away the stone. And Martha, she's a very practical lady, she says to Jesus, Lord, he's been dead 4 days. By now there's going to be a bad odor. And Jesus asked Martha a very important question, which we need to confront ourselves with. He says to her, did I not say to you that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God? In the midst of our deepest sorrows, our most painful experiences, the way that you see God controlling everything and working all things for our good and his glory is when instead of doubting him and questioning him and complaining to him, you trust him. You submit your thinking and your will, which might say, Lord, I don't know why this is happening. I don't really know what is going on, but I know you are in control. Isaiah 55 verse 9 says, God says to us, as far as the heavens are above the earth, so my thoughts and my ways are higher than your thoughts and your ways. The Jews who are there, who see Jesus weeping, some of them say to one another, couldn't this man who opened the eyes of the blind have saved this man, have healed this man? That's a lot of times when people say that tragedy proves there is no God, that's the reasoning behind it. They say that either he can't really have the power to do what Christians claim he can do, or he really doesn't care. He really doesn't love. And the problem in the logic that we need to see in that reasoning is essentially what you are saying is God must do things the way we think they should be done in order to prove that he is God. And in an actual sense, doing things the way that humans think they should always be done would actually prove someone's not really God, right? So we need to learn from this story, in the midst of this personal tragedy, this family experience, that God was not distant from it. He was part of it. He was present in it. He allowed it for their benefit and to bring glory to himself, to demonstrate his power and his goodness. So, friend, if you are experiencing sorrow, or if you're even looking around at the world and heartbroken over what people in different places are experiencing, trust God. He is in control, and you will see his glory. God bless.